protests in Minnesota have now transcended being a mere demonstration movement, and the social tension in the state is transforming into a profound crisis. The pressure from the Donald Trump administration and federal officials regarding immigration operations, particularly with the hardening practices of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Unit, has triggered a serious reaction among broad segments of society. Although these reactions initially began as peaceful protests, they quickly turned into a militarized atmosphere of conflict. In particular, the killing of some protesters during immigration and customs enforcement operations significantly increased public outcry, turning the streets of Minneapolis into a long-term field of resistance. Civil society organizations and the local populace criticized the harsh interventions of federal forces as disproportionate use of force. These interventions also include the use of chemical tear gas. While demonstrators experienced difficult moments under the influence of this gas cloud, the density of the gas was used by protesters in some spots as a temporary cover, allowing for direct street-level counter-struggle attempts against federal agents. The course of the protest has become much more than a single demonstration. The public is no longer just shouting slogans, but has entered into direct street struggles that increase the risk of conflict with opposing forces. Local sources report that in some areas, protesters surrounded immigration and customs enforcement teams and engaged in scuffles. This situation shows that the clashes between the police and the public have gone far beyond the passive resistance seen in most urban protests. It is stated that in the rising resistance against the harsh interventions of immigration and customs enforcement, the events have created a perception of a legitimacy crisis among protesters. The fact that federal forces are intervening with intense use of force and gas rather than limited measures creates a feeling of a partial siege among large segments of the population. Even children, the elderly, and ordinary citizens on the streets of Minnesota face serious health effects due to the gas, which further escalates the tension. The resistance movement in Minnesota has turned into a widespread culture of civil resistance through the organized efforts of local people and activist groups. Thousands of people taking to the streets in and around Minneapolis are protesting immigration and customs enforcement practices. In the protests, people are not only demanding more humane immigration policies, but also calling for the cessation of federal force operations. This movement has become a reaction based on social solidarity against federal intervention and for the protection of immigrant communities. This rising resistance within the community is also seen as a reflection of the protest wave spreading across the country. The protests in Minnesota are not just a local event, they have become one of the epicenters of large-scale demonstrations emerging as part of the dissatisfaction felt against federal immigration practices throughout the United States. Protests organized in different cities follow the developments in Minneapolis and take to the streets with similar emotional reactions. All these developments show that the resistance on the streets of Minnesota is still ongoing, revealing that these actions have evolved into a long-term struggle and a process of civil disobedience rather than a protest. This process continues to increase the public's distrust and reaction toward federal forces. This entire picture has ignited a deep debate both within the state and in the national public opinion,